Dr. Lisa Morgan sat in the corner of the meeting room, her datapad balanced on her knee as she scribbled notes in her personal journal. The alien voices around her buzzed in their strange languages, discussing trade routes and cultural exchanges. She had learned to understand most of what they said, but writing in her own language helped her think clearly. The research vessel Stellar Harmony was home to dozens of different species, all working together to study the galaxy's lost civilizations. Lisa was the only human on board, brought along because of her skills with ancient languages. Most days she felt like a curiosity herself, the strange creature from the small blue planet that had only recently joined the galactic community. Her pen moved smoothly across the digital surface, forming the flowing curves and loops of cursive writing. Her grandmother had taught her this old style of writing when she was young. Most humans used simple printed letters now, but Lisa loved the way cursive felt under her hand. It reminded her of home. Commander Vextar was explaining something about mineral rights when Lisa's datapad slipped from her knee. The device clattered to the floor, spinning once before coming to rest face up. The screen glowed brightly, showing her journal entry with its elegant flowing script. The room fell silent. Commander Vextar stared at the screen, his 4 eyes wide with shock. His blue skin had turned pale, almost white. The other aliens in the room leaned forward, trying to see what had caused such a reaction. "Where did you learn to write like that?" Vextar's voice was barely a whisper. Lisa picked up her datapad, confused by the sudden attention. "Learn what?" "This is just English cursive. It's how my grandmother taught me to write." "That's impossible." Vextar stood up slowly, his tall frame towering over the seated humans and other species. "Those symbols." "I know those symbols." Dr. Nethera, the ship's chief archaeologist, moved closer. Her species looked almost human except for their golden skin and large, dark eyes. "May I see your writing more closely?" Lisa hesitated, then turned her datapad toward the group. Her journal entry was simple. Thoughts about missing her cat back on Earth, wondering what her brother was doing, and notes about the alien languages she was studying. Vexitar pointed at the screen with a shaking finger. "These marks, these curves and connections, they match ancient Karelian script almost perfectly." "What's ancient Karelian?" Lisa asked. "A language that died 3,000 years ago," Nethera said softly. "When the Great War destroyed the Karelian civilization, their language vanished with them. We found fragments in old ruins, enough to know it existed but never enough to understand it fully." Lisa looked at her writing again. To her it was just English words in cursive script. The letter A looked like a small circle with a line. The letter E was a simple loop. Nothing seemed strange or alien about it. "This has to be a coincidence," she said. "Humans developed this writing style on Earth. It came from older European scripts, which came from Latin, which came from even older alphabets. It's completely human." Captain Zolquin, a reptilian being with green scales and bright yellow eyes, joined the conversation. "Dr. Morgan, how long have humans been using this writing style?" "Cursive? Maybe 500 or 600 years in this exact form, but it evolved from scripts that are much older. Some parts go back thousands of years." The aliens exchanged glances. Vextar's breathing had become rapid and shallow. "Captain, we need to examine this more carefully. If this human writing really matches ancient Karelian, then our understanding of galactic history might be wrong," Captain Zolquin finished. Lisa felt overwhelmed by their reactions. "Look, I can show you how cursive works. It's not mysterious. Each letter connects to the next one to make writing faster. See?" She wrote her name slowly on the datapad, demonstrating how each letter flowed into the next. The aliens watched in fascination as she formed each curve and line. When she finished, Vextar was nearly trembling. "The connection patterns," he whispered, "the way certain symbols join together. It's exactly like the fragments we found on Carol Prime." "But that's impossible," Lisa protested. "Humans have never been to Carol Prime. We only discovered space travel 50 years ago. We've never heard of the Karelian civilization until now." Dr. Nethera pulled out her own device and showed Lisa images of ancient stone tablets covered in carved symbols. The script was rough and broken, clearly very old, but Lisa could see what Vextar meant. Some of the carved symbols did look similar to her cursive letters. "These tablets are over 3,000 years old," Nethera explained. "We found them in the ruins of the last Karelian city. For centuries we've tried to understand what they say." Lisa studied the images more carefully. The similarities were strange, but she still couldn't believe there was any real connection. Languages can develop similar features by accident. It's called convergent evolution. Maybe intelligent species naturally create similar writing systems. Maybe, Captain Zolquin said, but his tone suggested he wasn't convinced. Dr. Morgan, would you be willing to work with our research team? We'd like to compare your human writing with our archaeological records. Of course, Lisa agreed, though she felt nervous about the attention. But I really think you'll find this is just a coincidence. As the meeting broke up, Lisa noticed the aliens whispering among themselves in their own languages. They kept glancing at her with expressions she couldn't read. Some looked excited, others seemed worried or confused. That evening, Lisa sat in her small quarters looking at her journal again. Her cursive writing looked the same as always, familiar, comfortable, human. She thought about her grandmother, who had learned cursive from her own grandmother, who had learned it from hers. The style had been passed down through generations of human families. But now aliens were telling her that her grandmother's handwriting looked like symbols from a civilization that had died before humans ever left Earth. The whole situation felt impossible, like something from a strange dream. Lisa picked up her pen and wrote a simple sentence. What secrets are hidden in the way we write? The words flowed across the screen in elegant curves, just as they always had. But now, for the first time, her own handwriting looked mysterious to her. Outside her small window, the stars moved slowly past as the stellar harmony continued its journey through space. Somewhere among those distant suns were the ruins where ancient symbols waited to tell their stories. Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that her simple human cursive was about to unlock secrets no one expected. The next morning, Lisa found herself in the ship's main research lab, surrounded by screens showing ancient symbols and archaeological data. Commander Vextar had barely slept, spending the night comparing her cursive writing to every piece of ancient Karelian text in the ship's database. Look at this, Vextar said, his voice filled with excitement and disbelief. He pointed to two screens side by side. On the left was Lisa's journal entry from yesterday. On the right was a photograph of carved stone symbols from an ancient Karelian temple. Lisa stared at the comparison. The similarities were more obvious now that she could see them clearly. Her cursive letter D looked almost identical to a Karelian symbol that appeared frequently in their texts. The way she connected her letters matched the flow patterns in the ancient carvings. This is very strange, she admitted, but I still don't understand how it's possible. Dr. Nethera entered the lab carrying a large box of research materials. I've brought everything we have on ancient writing systems, she said. If there's a connection here, we need to examine it carefully. Captain Zolquin joined them, looking serious. Dr. Morgan, we need to expand this investigation. Can you contact other humans and ask them to send examples of your writing systems? I can try, Lisa said. My colleague Danny Torres back on Earth studies historical languages. He has access to lots of different scripts. Lisa sent a message to Danny, explaining the situation as simply as she could. She asked him to send samples of various human writing styles, cursive, printed letters, and examples of older scripts like Sanskrit and Arabic. She tried not to sound too excited in her message, but Danny knew her well enough to realize something important was happening. While they waited for Danny's response, the research team began analyzing Lisa's writing in detail. They measured the angles of her letters, the spacing between words, and the way different symbols connected to each other. Every measurement was compared to the ancient Karelian texts. The mathematical relationships are nearly identical, Vextar reported after several hours of analysis. The ratio of curved lines to straight lines, the average length of connected letter sequences, even the frequency of certain symbol combinations. Lisa watched the data appear on screen after screen. She was beginning to feel overwhelmed by the implications. But how could human writing be connected to an alien language that died thousands of years ago? That's what we need to find out, Dr. Nethera said gently. Danny's response arrived that afternoon, and it was more than Lisa had hoped for. He had sent not just examples of different writing styles, but also historical information about how each script had developed over time. There were samples of ancient Greek, Latin, medieval manuscripts, Chinese calligraphy, Arabic script, Sanskrit, and even examples of cuneiform and hieroglyphics. The research team spent the rest of the day examining Danny's files. What they found left them all speechless. Captain, Vextar called out, his voice strained. "You need to see this." Captain Zolquin hurried over to look at Vextar's screen. The commander had found something in the Sanskrit examples that made his hands shake as he pointed. "These Sanskrit symbols," Vextar said. "They match mathematical notation we found in old Zephyrian ruins. Perfect matches for symbols we thought were uniquely Zephyrian." Dr. Nithera was examining the Chinese calligraphy samples on another screen. The brushstroke patterns in these Chinese characters. They're identical to decorative elements we found in Vrathari temples, elements we thought were artistic innovations of the Vrathari culture. Lisa felt dizzy. That's impossible. These are all human writing systems that developed on Earth, completely separate from any alien contact. "Are you certain of that?" Captain Zolquin asked quietly. "Of course I'm certain. We have historical records going back thousands of years. These scripts developed gradually over time, with clear connections between older and newer forms. There's no mystery about their origins." But even as Lisa said this, she began to feel uncertain. The similarities the aliens were finding weren't small coincidences. They were exact matches, perfect correlations between human writing and ancient alien scripts that supposedly died out millennia ago. Danny sent another message that evening, responding to Lisa's follow-up questions. He included more detailed historical information and examples of how various scripts had influenced each other throughout human history. He also sent recordings of himself reading ancient texts in Sanskrit and Latin, showing how the languages sounded. When the research team played Danny's recordings, Commander Vextar nearly fell out of his chair. "The pronunciation patterns," Vextar whispered. "The way he emphasizes certain syllables, the rhythm of the spoken words. It's exactly like the ancient Karelian pronunciation guides we found carved in temple walls." Dr. Nithera was listening to the Latin recordings with her head tilted, concentrating intently. The vowel sounds in this Latin match perfectly with old Zephyrian ceremonial chants. "Our linguists always wondered about the unusual patterns in those chants. But now they make sense if they were originally human languages," Captain Zolquin finished. Lisa sat down heavily in a chair. "This can't be right. You're saying that ancient alien civilizations were somehow using human languages? That's impossible." "Maybe," Dr. Nithera said thoughtfully. "Or maybe we have the timeline wrong." "What do you mean?" "What if these weren't alien languages that somehow resemble human writing? What if they were human languages that alien civilizations learned and preserved?" The room fell silent as everyone considered this possibility. Lisa felt her understanding of galactic history beginning to crumble. "But humans have only been in space for 50 years, she protested weakly. "Humans have only been in space for 50 years this time," Captain Zolquin corrected gently. "What if there was an earlier time when humans traveled among the stars?" Lisa thought about her grandmother's handwriting, passed down through generations of human families. She thought about the ancient scripts Danny had sent, some of them thousands of years old. She thought about the careful way her grandmother had taught her to form each letter, explaining that the techniques had been handed down from mother to daughter for centuries. "How far back do your archaeological records go?" Lisa asked quietly. "The oldest Karelian sites are about 8,000 years old," Dr. Nithera replied. "The earliest Zephyrian ruins date back roughly 10,000 years. And the oldest human writing systems we know about are almost as old," Lisa said, the implications hitting her like a physical blow. Commander Vextar pulled up a galactic timeline on his screen. "According to our histories, the Karelian civilization emerged suddenly about 8,000 years ago, with a fully developed language and culture. We always thought this was unusual, but we assumed their earlier development simply wasn't preserved in the archaeological record." "Same with the early Zephyrian culture," Dr. Nithera added, "and the Vrathari. All of our oldest civilizations seem to appear suddenly, with complex languages and cultural systems already in place." Lisa stared at the timeline, seeing patterns she had never noticed before. What if they didn't develop those languages themselves? What if they learned them from humans who were already there? The possibility hung in the air like a question that could change everything. Lisa looked at her own handwriting on the screen, the simple cursive letters her grandmother had taught her. Suddenly, those familiar curves and loops looked like messages from a forgotten past, secrets written in a language that had traveled farther than anyone imagined. 3 days later, the research lab had been transformed into a command center for the most important investigation in galactic history. Danny Torres had sent dozens of additional files, including audio recordings, historical documents, and samples from every major human writing system. The walls were covered with screens showing comparisons between human scripts and ancient alien texts. Lisa stood before the largest display, where the evidence had become impossible to ignore. Sanskrit symbols matched perfectly with old Zephyrian mathematical notation. Chinese characters contained elements found in Vrathari religious texts. Arabic script showed clear connections to ancient Kethmaran trade documents. Even Egyptian hieroglyphics had similarities to symbols found in ruins across 3 different star systems. "It's not just similar," Dr. Nythera said, her voice filled with awe. "It's the same. These aren't coincidences or parallel development. These are the exact same writing systems." Commander Vextar had spent hours analyzing the linguistic patterns. The grammatical structures are identical too. The way Sanskrit arranges words matches the sentence patterns we found in Karelian temple inscriptions. The mathematical concepts in ancient Chinese texts use the same symbolic relationships as Zephyrian engineering documents. Captain Zolquin studied the timeline they had constructed. "If this is correct, then everything we know about galactic history is wrong." Lisa felt overwhelmed by the implications, but she needed to understand. "Tell me what you think happened. What's your theory?" Dr. Nythera pulled up a star map showing the locations of ancient ruins throughout the galaxy. "Based on the evidence, we think humans achieved space travel over 10,000 years ago. They spread across the galaxy, establishing colonies and making contact with other species." "But that's impossible," Lisa protested. "Earth's history only shows primitive human civilizations 10,000 years ago. Stone tools, simple farming, nothing that could build spaceships." "What if the humans who went to space weren't from Earth?" Vextar suggested. "What if Earth was just one of many human worlds? Or," Captain Zolquin said slowly, "what if something happened that made humans lose their advanced technology and return to primitive conditions on their home world?" The idea sent chills through Lisa. She thought about human myths and legends, stories of golden ages and lost civilizations that every culture seemed to remember. "Are you saying that Earth humans are the descendants of people who fell from a higher level of civilization?" "It would explain everything," Dr. Nythera said. "Why ancient alien civilizations appeared suddenly with fully developed languages and cultures. They weren't developing these things themselves. They were learning from humans who were already there." Lisa looked at the evidence again, trying to find flaws in their reasoning, but the connections were too perfect, too detailed to be coincidences. "What happened to those early humans? Where did they go?" "That's what we need to find out," Captain Zolquin said. "But I think some of them never left." He pulled up another screen showing genetic analysis data from various alien species. "We've been comparing DNA samples from archaeological sites with modern alien populations. Look at these results." The data showed unexpected similarities between ancient genetic material and several modern alien species. Not enough to prove direct ancestry, but enough to suggest significant interaction and mixing between early humans and other galactic species. "You're saying that some ancient humans interbred with alien species?" Lisa asked. "Over thousands of generations, yes," Dr. Nythera confirmed. "Modern Karelians, Zephyrians, and several other species show clear signs of ancient human genetic influence. Not enough to make them human, but enough to prove extensive contact." Lisa sat down, trying to process this information. So the ancient human civilization didn't disappear. It evolved, adapted, and became part of other species' development. Exactly, and they preserved the languages and cultural knowledge, even as they forgot the original sources. Commander Vextar activated another display showing linguistic analysis of modern alien languages. Current Karelian has vocabulary roots that trace back to ancient Sanskrit. Modern Zephyrian mathematical terms are based on concepts that exist in old Chinese philosophy. Even our modern galactic standard language contains grammatical structures that originated in human Latin. The influences are everywhere, Dr. Nythera added. Art styles, musical patterns, architectural principles, even cooking techniques. Things we thought were unique alien innovations are actually preserved human cultural elements. Lisa thought about her grandmother's lessons, not just about writing, but about life. The old woman had taught her traditional recipes, showed her how to plant gardens using techniques passed down through generations, and shared stories that seemed to echo themes found in cultures across Earth. How much of human culture survived out here in the galaxy? More than we ever imagined, Captain Zolquin replied. But preserved in fragments scattered across dozens of species and civilizations, each group kept pieces of the original human knowledge, but none of them remembered where it came from. Until now, Vextar said. Until a human started writing in cursive and accidentally revealed that the ancient languages never died. They just went home and waited. Lisa stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere among those distant suns were worlds where humans had once lived and worked and built civilizations. Those humans had shared their knowledge with other species, had children with them, had become part of their cultures so completely that their own origins were forgotten. But why doesn't Earth remember? She asked. If humans had this advanced civilization, why don't we have any records of it? Maybe you do, Dr. Nythera suggested gently. Maybe you just don't recognize them as records. Lisa thought about human mythology again. Stories of gods who came from the stars. Legends of great floods and catastrophes that destroyed advanced civilizations. Tales of golden ages when humans had powers they later lost. Every human culture had these stories. The myth, she whispered. The legends about Atlantis and other lost civilizations. What if they weren't myths? What if they were cultural memories? Captain Zolquin agreed. Stories passed down through generations, becoming more fantastic over time, but preserving the essential truth that humans once had capabilities they later lost. Commander Vextar pulled up one final screen, showing a reconstruction of what the galaxy might have looked like 10,000 years ago. Human settlements were marked in blue, scattered across hundreds of worlds. Trade routes connected human colonies with alien homeworlds. It was a picture of a thriving, advanced civilization that spanned the stars. This is what we think the galaxy looked like when humans were at their height, Vextar explained. A partnership between humans and dozens of other species, sharing knowledge and culture across thousands of light years. What destroyed it? Lisa asked. We don't know yet. Maybe war. Maybe natural disaster. Maybe the civilization just evolved into something different. But the important thing is that it didn't really end. It transformed. Lisa looked at her reflection in the window, seeing herself against the backdrop of stars. She was no longer just Dr. Lisa Morgan, human linguist studying alien cultures. She was a descendant of the people who had helped build this galactic civilization, whose ancestors had taught other species to write and speak and think in ways that shaped the entire galaxy. So when I write in cursive, she said slowly, I'm not just using a human writing style. I'm continuing a tradition that helped create the foundation of galactic culture. Yes, Dr. Nythera said softly. You're proving that the language still lives. That the human contribution to galactic civilization was never lost. It was just waiting for the right moment to be recognized again. Lisa picked up her datapad and wrote a simple sentence in flowing cursive. We never really left. We've been here all along. The words curved and connected across the screen, carrying a message that was both ancient and immediate, both human and galactic. Outside the window, the stars seemed brighter than before, no longer distant and alien, but familiar and welcoming. They were calling the children of Earth back home to a galaxy that had never forgotten them, even when it forgot their names. Word of the discovery spread through the galactic research community like wildfire. Within a week, the Stellar Harmony had received messages from universities, governments, and research institutions across known space. Everyone wanted to examine the evidence that suggested human languages were the foundation of galactic civilization. Lisa found herself at the center of a storm of attention she had never wanted. News broadcasts in dozens of languages discussed her simple act of writing in cursive. Scientists demanded access to more human writing samples. Politicians argued about what the discovery meant for interspecies relations. Dr. Morgan, Captain Zolquin said during their morning briefing, Earth's government has requested permission to send a research team to join our investigation. They're sending Professor Kate Sullivan and several other specialists. Lisa knew Kate's reputation. She was Earth's leading expert on historical linguistics, the kind of scholar who could trace the development of languages across thousands of years. If anyone could help make sense of this situation, it would be Kate. How long until they arrive? Lisa asked. 3 days. They're coming on a fast courier ship. During those 3 days, the evidence continued to mount. Danny Torres had recruited colleagues from universities across Earth to contribute samples and historical data. The files arriving daily showed connections between human languages and alien cultures that seemed impossible to explain through Coincidence, Dr. Nethera had expanded her investigation to include archaeological sites across the galaxy. Teams on distant worlds were re-examining ancient ruins with new eyes, looking for evidence of human presence. The reports coming back were stunning. "Look at this," Nethera said, showing Lisa a transmission from the Corellian homeworld. Archaeologists found a burial site that's over 7,000 years old. The DNA analysis shows clear human genetic markers mixed with early Corellian DNA. Mixed? Lisa asked. Intermarriage over many generations? But the human influence is unmistakable. Commander Vextar had been analyzing cultural artifacts from museum collections across the galaxy. We're finding human influences everywhere. Musical instruments that use scales identical to ancient Chinese music theory. Pottery with decorative patterns that match designs found in early human civilizations. Even cooking methods that are clearly derived from human techniques. The sheer scope of human influence was overwhelming. It wasn't just language and writing. Human culture had shaped alien societies in ways that went deeper than anyone had imagined. When Professor Kate Sullivan arrived with her team, she brought something even more valuable than expertise: Earth's complete historical and linguistic database, containing detailed records of human cultural development spanning thousands of years. Kate was a small, energetic woman with gray hair and intense blue eyes. She listened to Lisa's explanation of the discovery with growing excitement, occasionally asking for clarification or requesting to see specific pieces of evidence. "This is remarkable," Kate said after reviewing the initial findings, "but I think you've only scratched the surface." She activated her own portable research system and began uploading files from Earth's archives. "I brought everything we have. Not just written languages, but oral traditions, mythology, genetic studies, archaeological data from every major human culture." Working with the alien research team, Kate began building a comprehensive picture of human development on Earth. What she found challenged everything Lisa thought she knew about human history. "Look at this timeline," Kate said, projecting a complex chart showing human development over the past 15,000 years. "There are gaps in our archaeological record that we've never been able to explain. Periods where human development seems to slow down or even reverse, followed by sudden advances in technology and culture." Lisa studied the timeline. "What kind of gaps?" "About 12,000 years ago, humans around the world suddenly began developing agriculture, mathematics, and complex social structures. But there's very little evidence of the gradual development you'd expect. It's as if the knowledge appeared suddenly." Dr. Nithera compared Kate's timeline with their galactic archaeological data. That matches perfectly with the earliest evidence of human contact with alien species. 12,000 years ago is when we start finding human genetic markers in alien populations. What if some humans never lost their technology? Kate suggested. What if there were always humans traveling between Earth and the galaxy, sharing knowledge in both directions? Commander Vextar pulled up orbital surveys of Earth from the Stellar Harmonies database. "We should look for evidence of ancient human space activity on Earth itself," Kate nodded. "We've found unexplained artifacts in archaeological sites around the world. Metal alloys that shouldn't exist in ancient civilizations, architectural techniques that seem too advanced for their time period, astronomical knowledge that requires technology we thought ancient humans didn't have. But those discoveries were always explained as anomalies or measurement errors," Lisa said. "Because we didn't have the right context to understand them," Kate replied. "But if humans were traveling to space 12,000 years ago, those anomalies make perfect sense." Over the next several days, Kate's team worked with the alien researchers to build a new model of human and galactic development. The picture that emerged was extraordinary. Ancient humans hadn't just achieved space travel once and then lost it. They had maintained contact between Earth and galactic colonies for thousands of years. Knowledge, people, and culture had flowed in both directions, with Earth serving as a home base for a far-flung human civilization. But something happened about 5,000 years ago, Kate explained, showing them updated timeline data. The connections between Earth and the galactic colonies were severed. On Earth we see the collapse of several advanced civilizations and a retreat to simpler technologies. The same time period when the ancient alien civilizations begin showing signs of isolation and cultural decline, Dr. Nithera added. "A galactic catastrophe," Captain Zolquin concluded. "Something that cut the connections between worlds and forced each population to survive on its own." Lisa thought about the implications. So Earth humans aren't primitive newcomers to the galaxy. We're the descendants of the original galactic civilization, returning after thousands of years of isolation. Exactly, Kate said. And the alien species we're meeting aren't really alien at all. They're the descendants of our ancient partners and allies, who preserved fragments of the original human-influenced culture. The political implications were staggering. Earth wasn't a junior member of the galactic community. It was the ancestral home of the civilization that had shaped galactic culture. Human languages weren't curiosities to be studied. They were the root languages from which most galactic tongues had evolved. But not everyone was happy with these discoveries. Reports came in of protests on several alien worlds, where populations rejected the idea that their cultures had human origins. Some alien governments claimed the evidence was fabricated, that humans were trying to claim credit for achievements that weren't theirs. There's going to be resistance, Captain Zolquin warned during one of their meetings. Many species have built their identities around the belief that they developed their cultures independently. Learning that they inherited much of their civilization from humans will be difficult to accept. But we can't ignore the evidence, Lisa said. The linguistic connections are too clear, the genetic data too detailed. This isn't speculation anymore, Kate nodded. The truth has a way of emerging regardless of whether people want to accept it. Our job is to document the evidence clearly and let others draw their own conclusions. Lisa looked around the research lab, now filled with data from dozens of worlds and thousands of years of history. Her simple act of writing in cursive had unlocked secrets that changed everything. She was no longer just a human studying alien languages. She was a bridge between the past and future, helping to reunite civilizations that had been separated by time and circumstance. What happens now? She asked. Now we go home, Kate said, both to Earth and to the galaxy. We help both sides remember who they really are and what they once shared. Lisa picked up her datapad and wrote a new entry in her journal, using the flowing cursive script that had started everything. Today I learned that coming home doesn't always mean going back to where you started. Sometimes it means recognizing that you never really left. The words flowed across the screen in elegant curves, carrying a message that was both ancient and new, both human and galactic. They were the words of someone who had discovered that the universe was much smaller and more connected than anyone had imagined, and that the family of intelligent life was larger and older than the history books had recorded. 6 months after Lisa's datapad fell to the floor of a meeting room, she stood before the newly established Human Heritage Institute on the space station Unity Prime. The massive facility floated at the edge of the Sol system, serving as a joint research center where human and alien scholars worked together to piece together the true history of galactic civilization. Lisa had never imagined she would become the director of such an important institution, but her accidental discovery had made her the obvious choice to lead the effort to understand humanity's galactic past. Every day brought new discoveries, new connections between human culture and alien civilizations. Dr. Morgan, said Dr. Kethvar, a Vrathari researcher, who had become one of her closest collaborators. The team from Andromeda Colony has sent their final report on the ancient trade routes. Lisa reviewed the data on her screen. The Andromeda team had traced the paths of ancient spacecraft between human colonies and alien homeworlds. The routes formed a complex network that had connected hundreds of worlds across thousands of light years. The trade wasn't just in goods, Dr. Kethvar continued. It was in ideas, languages, and people. We found evidence of human teachers working on alien worlds, alien students studying on human colonies. It was a true partnership. Professor Kate Sullivan entered the lab carrying a stack of physical books, artifacts she had brought from Earth's oldest libraries. I have something you need to see, she said, setting the books on Lisa's desk. Kate opened one of the books, revealing pages of ancient text written in Sanskrit. This is a manuscript from a monastery in Tibet over 3,000 years old. But look at these margin notes. Lisa examined the pages carefully. In the margins of the ancient Sanskrit text, someone had written notes in 3 different scripts, one that looked like early Chinese characters, another that resembled Arabic, and a third that was clearly similar to the Karelian symbols they had been studying. A multilingual human scholar, Lisa breathed. Someone who knew Sanskrit, Chinese, Arabic, and Karelian. Not just knew them, Kate corrected. Someone who understood that they were all part of the same linguistic family. Look at these translation notes. This person was showing how concepts in Sanskrit related to similar ideas in Karelian philosophy. Commander Vextar, who had been assigned to work permanently at the Institute, joined their discussion. We found similar evidence on Carol Prime, ancient Karelian texts with margin notes in what we now recognize as human scripts. It's as if scholars from both cultures were constantly sharing knowledge and comparing ideas. The evidence of cultural exchange was everywhere once you knew how to look for it. Alien museums had begun re-examining their collections, finding human influences in artifacts they had studied for centuries. Human archaeologists were discovering alien elements in ancient Earth sites that had previously been unexplained. Dr. Jenny Walsh, a young human linguist who had joined the Institute from Cambridge University, brought exciting news from her latest research project. "I've been working with the Zephyrian Academy to analyze their oldest ceremonial chants," she reported. "The rhythm and vocal patterns are identical to techniques used in ancient Welsh poetry." "Welsh?" Lisa asked, surprised. Apparently, the early human colonists who worked with the Zephyrians came from the Celtic regions of Earth. They taught the Zephyrians not just their language, but their entire approach to storytelling and music. Lisa thought about the implications. Different human cultures had connected with different alien species, sharing their unique perspectives and techniques. The diversity of human civilization had become the foundation for the diversity of galactic culture. But perhaps the most remarkable discovery came from an unexpected source. Dr. Alex Torres, Danny's younger brother who had joined the research team, had been analyzing the genetic data from archaeological sites across the galaxy. His findings challenged everything they thought they knew about human expansion. The early human colonists didn't just intermarry with alien species, Alex explained during a team meeting. They actively sought to preserve both human and alien genetic diversity. This wasn't accidental mixing. It was a deliberate effort to create new forms of intelligent life. "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "The genetic patterns show careful selection and planning. Early humans were working with alien scientists to combine the best traits of both species. Enhanced intelligence, improved physical capabilities, extended lifespans. They were creating new forms of life that were both human and alien." Dr. Nithera, who had been studying similar evidence from the alien perspective, nodded in agreement. "Our legends speak of the great teachers who came from the stars and helped our people become more than they were. We always thought these were mythological figures, but the genetic evidence suggests they were real. So modern alien species aren't just influenced by human culture," Lisa said slowly. "They're literally descended from human-alien partnerships. And modern humans carry genetic influences from those ancient alien partners," Alex added. "The DNA analysis of current Earth populations shows trace markers from several alien species. We're all more connected than we ever imagined." This discovery led to a breakthrough in understanding what had happened to the ancient galactic civilization. Professor Kate had been working with historians from across the galaxy to reconstruct the events of 5,000 years ago. "It wasn't a war or a catastrophe," Kate announced during a major presentation to the Galactic Council. "It was a planned transition." She displayed a timeline showing the gradual changes in human and alien civilizations around that time period. The evidence suggests that the ancient human-alien partnership deliberately evolved into something new. Instead of maintaining separate human colonies and alien homeworlds, they created integrated societies. "The pure human colonies were gradually abandoned," Dr. Kethver added. "Not destroyed, but peacefully evacuated as their populations moved to mixed worlds or returned to Earth. And the knowledge was preserved," Commander Vextar continued. "Not in libraries or databases, but in the languages, cultures, and genetic codes of the new mixed populations." Lisa realized what they were describing. The ancient civilization didn't fall. It transformed itself into the foundation of modern galactic society. Exactly. What we call alien civilizations are actually the evolved descendants of the original human-alien partnerships. They preserved the knowledge and culture, but forgot the original sources as the populations became more integrated. This understanding changed everything about how humans were viewed in the galactic community. Earth wasn't a primitive world that had recently achieved space travel. It was the ancestral home of galactic civilization, where the pure human genetic and cultural lines had been preserved, while the rest of the galaxy evolved into something new. But more importantly, it meant that the reunion between humans and the galactic community wasn't a meeting of strangers. It was a family reunion that had been thousands of years in the making. Lisa stood in her office at the end of a long day, looking out at the stars visible through the station's massive windows. Earth hung in the distance, a blue dot that had somehow managed to preserve the seeds of galactic civilization through 5,000 years of isolation. She picked up her datapad and began writing in her journal, using the same flowing cursive script that had started this incredible journey. Today I taught a class of human and alien students how to write in the old scripts, she wrote. As I showed them the connections between Sanskrit and Karelian, between Chinese characters and Vrathari symbols, I realized we're not just studying ancient history. We're remembering who we are. She paused, thinking about the students in her class, young humans learning alien languages, young aliens discovering their human heritage, and mixed species individuals who embodied the ancient partnerships in their very DNA. The languages never died, she continued writing. They just went home to wait for us to find each other again. Now they're teaching us that separation was always an illusion. We were never really apart. Lisa set down her datapad and looked at the words flowing across the screen in elegant curves. Her grandmother had taught her this script as a way to connect with the past. But it had done something more powerful than that. It had connected the present with a future where the family of intelligent life was finally reunited. Outside her window, ships from dozens of worlds moved through space, carrying passengers and cargo between the worlds of an ancient partnership that was becoming new again. In the corridors of the station, humans and aliens worked together, spoke together, and learned together, rebuilding connections that had never really been broken. The language still lived, Lisa realized. Not just in the scripts and symbols, but in the shared curiosity and cooperation that had always been humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. It lived in every question asked, every discovery shared, and every friendship formed between species that had once thought themselves strangers. She picked up her pen and added one final line to her journal entry. Tomorrow we begin writing the next chapter of our story, all of us together. The words flowed across the screen in perfect cursive, carrying a message of hope and connection that spanned the stars. They were the words of someone who had learned that coming home didn't mean going.